All right, everybody, welcome. We're going to get started in just one moment. Thank you so much. All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining this third webinar in the AFI Virtual Coffee webinar series. The title of this webinar is Program Development. During this webinar, you're going to learn about tips and tools, strategies for developing and delivering a strong AFI program. Overall, this series of webinars are intended to be interactive and engaging. We really want to provide the platform for grantees to connect and learn from each other. Throughout this and our fourth webinar coming up in September, you'll hear from grantees and their partners just like yourself and have the opportunity to discuss these tips, tools, and generate ideas for successfully maintaining and delivering your grants. All right, so just to introduce who's going to be joining us on this call today, we have myself, Megan Bellato, here at CFED, my colleague Kipa Haroon from CFED, Nick Piper, United Way for Southeastern Michigan, and Sara Littlefield Connor from New Hampshire Community Loan Fund. Before we get started, just a few technical details. If you're having any trouble dialing in to the landline or to the phone number, you can listen from your computer by clicking the option in the control panel. Connect your speakers or headset for best quality sound and set the audio accordingly on the webinar control panel to the right side of your screen. If you're having any technical difficulties, please type into the questions box or email Alicia at ahadley@cfed.org. Please keep in mind that this webinar is being recorded. We've muted all attendees to ensure sound quality, so if you have any questions or issues, please type them into that query box. We will make a recording and transcript of this presentation available on the IDA Resources website. The address is on your screens at a later date. This webinar should last approximately 90 minutes with plenty of time for questions and answers throughout and at the end. Please feel free to type your questions in during using the box at any time. All right, so just to go back a little bit, during this webinar you'll hear plenty of best practices, advice, ideas for developing and delivering a robust, sustainable, and manageable AFI project. You'll hear from fellow grantees about their program development stories, and you'll have the opportunity to ask questions and share ideas for developing and delivering a strong project. Again, this webinar is intended to provide a free space and platform to connect and learn from other grantees around the country. So we really, really want you to keep comments and questions flowing in through the chat box through the entire webinar, and we will be collecting and sharing questions and responses from our end. So we'll be facilitating that. As sort of alluded to before, as you're thinking about these questions, just go ahead, or comments, ideas, go ahead and throw them in through that box throughout the day. All right, so now we're going to get started with a few questions for you all so that we have a good idea of who's going to be in the room. So get ready. So the first question, if you all could please, in a moment, it's going to pop up. What is your level of experience with managing an AFI project? So in just a minute, that poll will pop up. All right, so just answer less than a year, 2 to 3 years, or advanced, meaning 4 or more years, and we'll give you just a minute to provide us with your responses. All right. So as you can see, we've got quite a few good answers here. We've got over half of you are have less than a year of experience delivering this AFI project. So this is a great webinar in this series for you all to be on. We have about 44% of you are you've been delivering an AFI program for about 2 to 3 years. So you're in the intermediate phase, which is totally fine. And then advanced 4 or more years. Nobody on this call, but that's why we have our fantastic folks, our guest speakers, Piper and Sara Littlefield Connor, who have plenty of experience and can share some ideas with you. Thank you so much. All right, some more questions then. This next question is going to be, what is your role with your AFI project? So at your organization, what role do you play? That poll is going to pop up in just a moment. All right, here. So, yeah, just let us know, are you the executive director at your organization? Are you a program coordinator or manager? Are you a database manager or a case manager? Or do you play another role at your organization? We'll just give you a few moments to fill that out. Thanks. Great. All right. Fantastic. So what we're looking at here is we've got about 13% of you, I'm not really sure what that breaks down to, are executive directors. The overwhelming majority, about 67% of you, serve as a program coordinator or manager. We've got 4% of you in a case manager role, and we've got 17% of you who would consider yourself in some sort of other role. If you all just want to, those folks who identify themselves as other, take a moment and share with us in the chat box what that other role might be. That could be really helpful for us in thinking about this conversation. All right. So while you're sharing that information, let's talk about the next question. So we're really curious to find out from you all where you are in the AFI grant project life cycle. So what we mean by this is, are you all in your project or program design phase? Are you already recruiting and enrolling participants? Are you in the process of actively supporting savings? Are your participants going ahead and they've already done their 6 months of savings and they're ready to make asset purchases? Or are you in the closeout phase? Perhaps your AFI program, your current AFI grant is closing out this upcoming September or later on in the year. So let us know where you are in this phase. All right, great. Thank you so much. And thanks for those who included some additional information about what role you play at the organization. Looks like we have an analyst in the planning division, and then we also have a director of programs. So that's great. That makes sense. In terms of where folks are in their AFI grant project life cycle, it looks like 21% of you are in the project design phase, which is great. 50% of you are currently recruiting and enrolling participants. Excellent. We've got 38%, almost 40% who are supporting savings. 63% of you say you've got participants making asset purchases. and then 33% of you are in the closeout phase. So that's interesting. As you all probably know, you can be recruiting and enrolling participants, supporting savings, and having participants making asset purchases all at the same time in an AFI grant life cycle. So it makes absolute sense that you guys would be across the board. All right. So our next question that we have for you all is, are you facing any of the following challenges that are making you rethink your program design, no matter where you are in your life cycle? So as we open up the poll, you'll see that we've got a couple here, and I just want to provide a little context for you. Funding challenges, such as raising or securing those non-federal funds or the administrative expenses. Are you experiencing organizational challenges, such as staff turnover or lack of buy-in from agency staff or capacity? Are you experiencing participant challenges, such as participants are having difficulty meeting their savings goal or there's problems with following up? Are participants unable to purchase assets, perhaps because of credit issues or lack of affordable housing in your area? Or are you experiencing challenges with data tracking, such as not having a proper database or a lack of clarity around who is responsible for doing that data tracking? So just take a moment and let us know if you're experiencing any or maybe all of those challenges. And if there's anything additional that's not included here, feel free to go ahead and type that in the chat box as well. All right, great. Okay, so it's looking like 13% of you are experiencing funding challenges. That's actually a fairly low number. We've got 35% experiencing some of these organizational challenges. 40% of you are experiencing participant challenges, and that says to me that this is a great webinar for you to be on, because there's lots of programmatic tips and tricks and best practices or promising practices that we can share with you that may help you support your participants through those challenges they might be experiencing. 9% of you are saying you're experiencing asset purchase challenges, and only 4% of you are experiencing some data tracking challenges. So that's really interesting. It looks like I'm hearing that you can only choose one, so sorry about that. A few others are saying you're definitely facing multiple challenges. We have one participant who's not having any of these challenges, which is great. Glad to hear that. But okay, that's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that. And again, feel free to keep those comments rolling in as you share kind of any specific challenges or context that makes sense for you. So our final poll question, and then we'll let you hear from our speakers. What tools, if any, do you use that help you to manage your AFI project? And so here, we'd love for you to just type your responses into the chat box so that we can see what kind of tools. And those tools can include anything from kind of an income tracking sheet, budgeting sheets, any sort of curricula you use, any sort of database or file that you found particularly helpful for participant tracking or keeping files, any of those sorts of tools that you found really useful. So we'll give you just a few moments to share that, and then we'll talk about a few more of them. Thanks. All right, keep them coming in, but I'm just going to go through a few that I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of folks who are using Outcome Tracker. I have a little bit of ETO here, Efforts to Outcome, which is great. Excel, many of you are using Excel. I'm also seeing a few of these that are coming from the AFI Resource Center that CPD helps to develop, including the AFI Data Collection Tool and AFI Eligibility Tool. I'm seeing one that I've never seen before called Fluid Review, so that's really interesting. I'm seeing Nicole Taylor shares creating teams that manage their individual budgets, donor and fundraising database, cross-functional team design for managing capacity and enrollment for savers. So that's really interesting. I love to see mobile text reminders, always a great tool for keeping your participants sort of engaged. Weekly email blasts, again, is also a really great tool for, making that connection. Again, plenty of Excel spreadsheets. Teamwork, production calendar and task manager list. That's a really great method of sort of internally managing what you have going on. Dropbox and Google Drive, that's definitely a tool that CFED uses a lot. The AFI benchmarking tool, I love to see that being used there in Wayne Metro. Thank you, Genevieve. Online account monitoring is also really important. It's definitely always useful to make sure that you have that relationship with your financial institution so that you can do that online account monitoring. Supplemental programming to offer supports. I love that. That's also great. Google Docs, teamwork project management, ETO and scorecard. I like that. Group texting, constant contact. This is great. These are some really great tools. Keep sharing those tools, anything that you found particularly useful, and we're definitely keeping track over here. We will share these, compile them, and share them out with the group later. And if there's anything, again, that you hear during this webinar, because you're all muted, if there's anything that you hear that you find particularly interesting or intriguing, definitely let us know. Type it in the chat box or shoot us an email, and we can get you more information on any of the stuff that you've heard here today. All right. Thank you. So now we're just going to turn it over to Nick Piper. Nick, are you on the line?
Yep, I'm here.
Fantastic. Nick, I'm just going to let you introduce yourself, and then we'll turn it over to you to share your ideas and thoughts about designing a solid project and program.
Great, thanks. All right. So thanks, everyone. Like Megan said, my name is Nick Piper. I am a manager on the Community Impact Team at United Way for Southeastern Michigan. And I sent Megan and Heba an email this morning, so I apologize if I get a little scratchy. It's been really nice in Michigan, but I've developed a cold and sore throat. So I'm powering through, but just if I get a little scratchy, that's why. So I manage a network of financial coaching sites, 5 of them. And some of them are IDA partners, and I also am managing our work, our IDA work at United Way. So I've been on the IDA work for 4.5 years, which from the slides earlier puts me at an advanced user, but I often feel like an intermediate or a beginner. I often have IDA questions, and I'll talk about some of the ways that I get answers from our network. But what I want to talk about today is a bit about United Way for Southeastern Michigan's background, our program design, and then the successes and challenges we've seen while working with the IDA program, and then I can hit on some of the tools we use as part of our network to troubleshoot. So why IDA for us? So United Way has had several grants with AFI going back as far as 2008. Like I said, I started in 2012. We're a Tri-County United Way, so we are serving Wayne, which includes Detroit, Oakland, and Macomb counties. And in 2008, we refocused our financial stability work by launching the Greater Detroit Center for Working Families in partnership with LISC. And so some of you guys might know the network as a Financial Opportunity Center, so either a CWF or FOC. If you're not sure what that is, basically it's an integrated service delivery network, meaning that folks are going to get bundled services. They're going to get access to an income support coach who's going to help them maybe identify free tax prep or housing assistance or food assistance. They're going to get some workforce coaching, so that may be a combination of resume and cover letter writing, and then some career skills, some technical skills. and then finally they're going to meet with a financial coach. And that's where we thought IDA would make a really good fit, is we've got some really strong partners embedded in communities that are already delivering financial services to folks who are clearly interested. And so so we just felt IDA was a natural fit for the network. We often heard, we're connected to our network, we have monthly network meetings, and our community-based organizations are telling us, you know, folks want to buy a house, they want to go to school, they want to start a small business, but there aren't enough resources or any resources out there to address those issues. So we had grants that started in 2010 and 2011. One is closed, and we're actually kind of nearing closeout in the other for our active grants. So in 2010 and 2011, we had 2 grants with 50 accounts each. And then in 2012, we launched a separate financial coaching network that offered income support and financial coaching. So all told, we've got 100 accounts. We've got 14 sites that are offering financial coaching services. Not all are IDA related, but you know, very well positioned to be an IDA program. So when it got to actually placing the accounts among the 2 grants, we basically took the 2 grants, cut them in half, and split them amongst 4 agencies. So 4 partners, 2 were in one grant and 2 were in another. I'm going to talk a little bit later about how that worked well and maybe how we would have designed it a bit differently, but just know that what I'll be talking about today, it has 2 partners in a grant and then 2 partners in another. And all of those sites, again, are part of this financial coaching network. So they're all able to provide the financial education. Most were able to provide the asset-specific education and additional supportive services like free tax prep, maybe some workforce, some food assistance, things like that, and typically serving at least 150 clients per year. So filling, you know, 25 between 4 over 5 years, you know, seemed like it would go just fine. In terms of program design, we designed our program with an idea of shared responsibilities. So to be clear, we are a network project with sub-grantees. Basically what that means is United Way is doing the application, getting the accounts, and we're not a direct service United Way, so then we're bringing on sub-grantees that are our existing partners to deliver the actual services and fill the accounts. So in terms of responsibilities, United Way is establishing and maintaining a relationship with the bank, so getting the bank to sign on to deliver the accounts, and then the existing relationship managing of that bank. Also, we're responsible for the data entry. So we at United Way are entering both the application that the agencies send us and then the bank statements into VistaShare outcome tracker. So we're entering all that, and then we're sending the bank statements off to the agencies. United Way in partnership. So we used to be, well, we still are, but as our final grant closes, we're part of a statewide IDA network in Michigan, which has been really helpful. And we would fundraise together to get, to Megan said earlier, to get to that point where we can draw down on the federal funds and have some administrative dollars. And the way we designed our network, or at least I don't know if they do it on all of Michigan, but the way we originally designed our network, sites are paid their admin on a per account basis, so they invoice us as they fill accounts. United Way is also responsible for all the federal reporting, which would include the financial and performance reports to AFI, and then we provide quarterly reports to our statewide partnership that reports up to our funder that gives us the match dollars. So lots of reporting. And then in terms of site responsibility, so they're obviously responsible for finding participants, filling the accounts, and maintaining the files, getting all the paperwork, and then coaching the clients to a successful close. And whether that's providing the financial education and then outsourcing the asset-specific or being able to deliver the asset-specific training in-house, that the sites take care of all that. Our match rate for both grants is 3-to-1 for home ownership, 2-to-1 for small business and education with a $1,000 savings target, so a $1,000 max saved for a 3-to-1 or 2-to-1 match. So that's kind of the logic behind IDA, the placement of our accounts and program design. And I want to talk a little bit about some successes that we saw and some tools that we use. So first and foremost, United Way for Southeastern Michigan has a really strong relationship with several financial institutions across the region. So some are already funding our financial stability work, so specifically funding maybe some free tax prep work through us, or funding our financial coaching services, and so connecting them with IDA seemed like a natural fit. So we were able to select 2 larger regional banks that had several branches across Southeast Michigan. Again, noting that we're a Tri-County United Way, so we want to make sure that it's easy for participants to open accounts and make deposits. We didn't want folks to have to drive 30 miles to open an account and then make deposits, because at least for our project, the majority of folks aren't using direct deposits. So most are actually taking cash or their checks to the bank and doing in-person transactions. And so we wanted to make it as easy as possible for folks to do that. We definitely did encourage our partners to encourage direct deposit, but it's just not the reality for everyone. And then in terms of, again, managing those relationships with the banks, that's something United Way did. So we're also part of the, like I said earlier, a statewide IDA network that consists of several grantees across Michigan. And for me, when I got started as a program manager at United Way about 4.5 years ago, I had worked at an IDA partner site but didn't have a lot of exposure to IDA itself. And so it was really helpful for me to get plugged into a group of what I would consider, IDA professionals who they know the legislation, they've seen it all in terms of, what can count as income, how do we, what can count as proof of income, what can you use match dollars for, qualified withdrawal money, things like that. And so plugging in with a group that had a lot of experience, if you're able to do that, either virtually through something like this or locally through other contacts is really helpful. And again, we were also able to do some joint fundraising. This happened before my time, so I can't really speak to how that worked. But we did used to fundraise together as a statewide partnership in getting those match dollars, specifically, I believe, with our state housing authority. So site communication, that's where this compliance visits bullet comes from. I rebranded it this morning when I was doing my run-through. So in terms of communicating with sites, because all of our sites are already financial coaching partners, they were already meeting quarterly as part of the network requirements. So they knew each other very well. And we found that this was helpful, that they could call each other if they had issues. It built our capacity at United Ways because we didn't always have to play the role of a troubleshooter. They could reach out to each other. We also asked that the IDA partners met quarterly with us, so we were the lead. So we organized the meetings and the agenda and convened the group and brought the group together quarterly to discuss IDA-specific topics. So we would typically look at a piece of legislation and talk about it. Our statewide IDA network has some policies and procedures, and so we would go over a section of that to ensure we're all in compliance. And then we talked a lot about retention strategies. So how are our sites keeping folks engaged, keeping them saving, and getting them to a qualified withdrawal or an asset purchase. Occasionally, we'd even have our financial partners come in, our financial institution partners come in and talk about other products that folks might be eligible for, or what it takes to qualify for a mortgage or start a small business. So really kind of up training those financial coaches, so when they were working with folks, they were giving them the most up-to-date information. So in addition to the site communications, United Way would also conduct annual compliance visits, essentially audits. We'd basically go through the paper files, make sure everything's in the correct, all the correct forms are there, the documentation's there, with the goal of we know that when someone's ready for a closeout, all their paperwork's there, and if for some reason AFI came out and wanted to audit our files, they're in great shape. In terms of the data entry, we're using, all of our sites use ETO for the Center for Working Families Community Financial Center work, so they can get some data from that and use that for a lot of their data. But for us, for the IDA work, we're using Vista Share Outcome Tracker to upload applications and bank statements, savings amounts, and United Way, as I said earlier, United Way is responsible for that. So that did, I think, make it easy for grantees. I'll talk about some of the challenges in a minute, but it did build the capacity for the grantees not to have to do that data entry. We would go ahead and take care of that so they could work on what's really important, which is making sure that they're filling accounts and getting folks to close. And then lastly, and this varies by site, but United Way has a strong brand in our region, and we were able to leverage our internal 211. So our 211 fields over 200,000 calls per year on a number of issues. But when people call in and they're looking for assistance to buy a house or to start a small business or go to school, we could confidently refer them to somebody. We knew that we had these 4 partners who had a great product that they could fit them in. A few other things that aren't on my slide. We had a really strong internal team United Way that consisted of myself managing the work, and then an administrative assistant doing a lot of the data entry, and then a liaison from our finance team, to track the administrative dollars, to track the match dollars. And so I think it's really important to, if you're doing a network project like we had, to have a strong team at United Way or at your organization, leading the management of it, the data, and the financial end. And all of our sites had been trained in a curriculum called $Works 2, so we had a standardized curriculum across the network. Some are also using MoneySmart, and then, like I said earlier, all of our sites are using ETO for a lot of the client management side, so they had a lot of the data already in the system and could report out that way. So those are the successes. In terms of challenges or things we had difficulty with, selecting sub-grantees, this isn't about who we selected, more how. So we had a network project where we would sub-grant to folks, and we had a pool of 14 we could have granted it to, and what we decided at the time, we had a where we had about eight sub-grantees, and that was difficult to manage, and so we limited it to 2 per grant. And that in the end, well, we thought it would have been a good idea, but in the end it did make it tough segmenting the grants that way to fill all of the accounts. What we would have done is just opened it up to the entire pool of our 14 sites with all the accounts, and then as they were filled, put people on hold if we ran out of accounts. It just would allow us to get across the entire region and had a bigger client base and limiting it to 4. So that's something we may have changed. In terms of contract structure, like I said, we were doing the fundraising either on our own or in partnership with our state IDA partnership, and we may have decided in the end to do a joint application with some partners and shared some of the administrative burden and the match dollars. That way we'd have our resources we can invest elsewhere, and the sites have a little more skin in the game in terms of having their match dollars, some of the match dollars be on them. For data entry, so the great side of the data entry for the sites is they didn't have to do it. We were taking care of it. The problem is it was a lot of data entry to be done when you're talking about 100 accounts. You're getting all those bank statements, all those applications, and occasionally there was a delay. So, we may get the bank statements from the financial institution on the 10th of the month. We're able to get them in by the 15th, and then off to sites between the 15th and the 20th. And so if it's July, sites might not know till July 20th if their client saved in June, and that just makes it really difficult on the site. Sites, we're getting frustrated with the delay in bank statements, and so I think if we had to restructure it, United Way may still take on the burden of doing the applications because that seems to be pretty heavy, and we will somehow figure out a way for the sites to upload bank statement information because that seemed to be the biggest problem. And then in terms of the number of financial institutions, having 2 regional banks seemed like a really good idea because we wanted to make sure and cover our 3 counties. We didn't want to alienate anyone or say, nope, you can't do it because of this travel restriction because there's only banks in Wayne County or only in Oakland County. And so we wanted to make sure the banks were in all the counties. But it did make it difficult because folks were going to different branches to open IDAs, and occasionally they were opening accounts incorrectly or they were making withdrawals that we weren't aware of. And so I just can't stress enough having making sure that you're consistently talking to the bank, whether it's monthly or quarterly, bringing them into your meetings, and making sure that partnership is really strong. Because again, we just had some challenges, with accounts being opened, and us either not knowing about it because the client didn't take the right form, or the bank didn't know how to do it correctly because it's a new person at the branch. There was turnover like any other industry, and so making sure that maybe you work with one bank or credit union and making sure you have a really good relationship with them, I think is something that was strong. And then in terms of participant retention, this has been an issue in any program I've worked on. First it's getting participants to make the commitment and then actually save on a monthly basis, and then getting them ready for their asset purchase. And I think where we struggled, especially amongst homeownership, is most folks that came into the program wanted to just save for 6 months, do that 6-month IDA and get the house and move on. And what we were finding is folks just weren't ready for a home purchase in that 6-month period. If you come in the door with a 570, it's going to be really tough to get you where you need to be, a 570 credit score, sorry, to get you to get that credit score up in 6 months. Maybe you had some collections, or if you had a past bankruptcy. And so really we encourage our sites to be real with clients and help them understand where they need to be in order to qualify for that home purchase. Some things we tried to do, some products we tried to institute to help with either retention or getting to the asset purchase. We started a microgrant program, not necessarily because of IDA, and it's open to anyone in our network of financial coaching sites, but it's a $500 to $1,500 grant you can apply for to fund an opportunity. and we often see that it's to buy a house or buy a car, go back to school, start a business. So it's 3 of the 4 typical assets you can qualify with an IDA, and some folks were pairing them together. So maybe they're doing a small business IDA and they're also going to apply for a microgrant, and having the opportunity of scoring a microgrant really kept that participant engaged. And then the second product was in partnership with LISC. It's called a twin account, and you can look it up online. It's a match savings product that has a credit building aspect. So you essentially take out a secured loan at a bank, they put it in a CD, and the participant makes the payments on it over a year. At the end of the year, you get the amount, the $250 loan plus a match on the back end. And that tended to help folks get ready for that home purchase. It gave them another line of good credit. And so we tried a couple of different things to keep folks engaged, which was a little bit of a challenge. And I think that's it for me.
So Nick, we had a few, thank you for the wonderful presentation. I think all the attendees found it very helpful. We had a few questions that came in, and so I'll just read them out aloud to you. One is this approach based on the approach that you took with the IDEA project on the AFI network model, or would you say it's more of a collective impact model?
A collective impact model is what yeah.
And the other question is, can you share the dollar amount for administration per account for partners?
Yeah, I think it's around $450 per account.
Great.
Is what yeah, that's roughly what it is. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Nick. We've got a few more questions rolling in, and folks, feel free to continue to type questions. Let us know what you think. I think I heard some of your best practices included like bundling services, really centralizing kind of role divisions and who's doing what and how that's all going to work, and really making you guys sort of the centralized location for all of that. Definitely heard a lot from you about building strong financial institutional relationships and making sure you're really thinking through that financial institutional partner. That's really a good callback, folks, for any of you who have more questions or thoughts around that. We did have some discussion on building strong partnerships, particularly with financial institutions, on a previous webinar. So that should be up, if it's not already up, with transcripts soon. I also heard a lot of really good information around meeting clients where they are. So getting those clients prepared for asset purchase, I think that's a programmatic piece that we see at CBD working with grantees all the time. It's a common challenge, what is the right approach, what's the right balance with all of that. So I think that's really interesting. I'm curious, we have quite a few more questions rolling in for you, Nick, but I'm curious, I guess what I heard you say is that one approach that you all have that seemed to work really well is really to pair an IDA program with another financial capability service, such as twin account or something else. Are there other, and that really sounds to me like sort of pairing an IDA match savings program with another sort of wealth building program, like a twin account or something of that nature. Have you found any other sorts of programmatic techniques that work, such as changing the, if you've had any of your network members sort of change the way that they engage with members or clients, or change the way that they deliver financial education, or changes in their recruitment outside of just pairing it with another product?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll try to answer that and then weave something else in. So, yeah, like Megan said, so IDA. So this program, at least the way we see it, isn't going to stand alone, right? So, especially just on the admin dollars. So that $450 per account. All the sites that I talked about earlier are also getting additional funding to deliver the financial education, because $450 isn't much to serve one client. So yeah, I mean, what we've tried to pair it with is obviously the financial coaching we're doing, and what we've tried to do, with support of the network and in our region, is do, really focus on that financial coaching and do the, it's kind of, I don't know if it's a social worky term, but really meet folks where they are. So really understanding, what their goals are and using that client-centered approach, and so letting the client tell us, what do they want to accomplish? And then the coach kind of coming up alongside and providing tools. So providing, like you said, potentially a twin account, potentially a micro grant. We have a couple other, I'm blanking on the name because they're not United Way programs, but they're small business coaching programs that some of our sites refer folks to, and so they're going through this small business academy that's 8 weeks, and at the end they have a chance to apply for an SBA loan and kind of have priority status there. And so, yeah, I think it is about pairing it with other services, because IDA is great, but I think as a standalone, it can be tough to deliver. And I think if there's something else you can pair it with, that's ideal.
Oh, that's really interesting. Thanks for sharing. Got a couple more questions here.
So one question we had is, was the grant originally approved to be able to do sub-grant awards, or did you decide to take this approach later on?
No, so I wasn't here when either grant was applied for, but my understanding is, yeah, it was approved as a sub-grantee. It was applied for as we would do sub-grants, because we're not we don't do direct service, so we'd have to have sub-grantees.
Great. And then we have several questions about the twin account program through Justine Peterson. So if you could talk a little bit about that, the official name of the product, and then sort of the process of enrollment.
So I'll talk as much as I know. So part of it is we have a really great partnership with our local LISC office. So LISC, they're in the same building. We jointly fund 8 partners that are Center for Working Family sites in Greater Detroit. And we've been doing that together since 2008. And the twin account, I actually don't know the acronym, but essentially, like I said, it's a match. It's almost like a match savings. So clients will go into the bank, they'll take out a $250 loan. It goes into a secured CD, so the clients don't ever get access to that money right there. So it's essentially no risk for the financial institution. Justine Peterson is the CDFI, right, that manages that, and they the client over 12 months will pay back. I don't know, what is that? Something like $28 a month. Over that 12 months, payments are reported to credit bureau. So obviously you want folks in that product that are going to pay on time. At the end of the 12 months, you can choose to have a match or not. Our United Way had some resources. We were able to provide a match, a $250 match on the back end. So folks get the $250 loan that they got at the beginning, and then a $250 match. And then hopefully over those 12 months, they've significantly increased their credit score. I think I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I think they had some data that if folks had a thin file, so essentially nothing on their report, and they opened a twin account, in that 12-month period, they can go from essentially unscored to around 700. I don't have specific examples because the twin accounts are still fairly new in our region, but it is something that we've tried to pair with IDA specifically for the homeownership folks to have another product that's not predatory and that's reliable. And then we hear good things about to get them plugged in to build that credit, because we know that having solid credit is so important for that home ownership purchase. And that was the biggest challenge for us is that we realized is folks had that $1,000 saved in our $3,000 match, but they were having trouble qualifying for an affordable mortgage product.
Great. And the final question that we have, it may just be a clarifying question on your end, is what was the name of the credit building match that you referred to? So is the twin accounts program the only credit building program that you offer, or is there another one that you? Yeah,
no, so yeah, the twin accounts is the one we offer. We also have a micro grant program, which is just an in-house United Way program where we'll grant $500 to $1,500 to fund an opportunity. But yeah, there's no credit building aspect with that. If you fill out an application with a financial coach, and then we have United Way staff and volunteers review those applications and award them as we have resources.
Great.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nick. That was really helpful.
Yep, no problem.
Sorry. Okay. So great. And, folks, continue as you're listening to this next presentation. If you have questions or things come up, definitely feel free to continue to type in questions, comments, ideas, or if you've had any experience with any of the products or strategies that Nick just described. So now we'll turn it over to Sara Littlefield-Connor with New Hampshire Statewide IDA Collaborative. Sara, we've got you on the line?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Great. Well, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you for inviting us in to speak about our program. if 4 years is experienced, I must be ancient because I've been working with this program since 2003, and the Community Loan Fund started an IDA program in 2001 with our first AFI grant. And basically, this is kind of a before and after story, and that's how we learned a lot of our lessons and takeaways, I guess, that we would be contributing to this conversation. So I guess I'll start from the beginning, which is in 2001, we applied for an AFI grant. It was a $590,000 grant. We had very big aspirations. And the way that we initially designed the program is that the Community Loan Fund, which is a CDFI, would handle all of the back office operations and administration and manage the AFI grant. And then we worked with community partners across the state they would provide all of the counseling and one-on-one work with the participants. So we would try to remove kind of the administrative burden for them so that they could focus on participant contact. And initially our program design was a 3-to-1 match on $2,000 of savings, so they would get $6,000. And we were requiring 12 hours of training per year, and that's asset and financial fitness training combination. And then our program initially was focused on housing. We had 6 kind of regionally based community partners to cover most of the state of New Hampshire. And we also had a microenterprise technical assistance program here in the Community Loan Fund. So we focused a lot on microenterprise just because it was part of what we were already doing. The next, yeah. So program delivery, as I said, we started with the first $590,000 grant. We had money fully committed financial partners who were interested in providing lots of funding. We had tax credits. We had private foundations. So all of the money was raised, including operating money, when we started this program with those first 2 grants. There was lots of interest from organizations across the state. You know, what a great idea. Certainly with a need as far as filling the gap for down payments and housing in particular, and microenterprise as well, just getting some money into these small businesses so that they could get a jump start. We developed a proprietary database for match tracking and reporting back in the beginning. And then we assumed that the community partners would work with the savers on any asset track. So even if they were a housing-specific community partner, they could offer microenterprise and kind of facilitate the match savings process with the participants, and then help them get training through other people throughout the state. So it was a little bit of a cross-functional area for these organizations. Particularly when it came to education. We had a lot of problems with education in the beginning because the community partners just didn't have that experience. And we also assumed that there would be a huge demand across the state based on the early data in all of these areas. So unfortunately, a lot of this didn't really pan out in the beginning. We really had a hard time managing those large grants. We made a lot of assumptions around how quickly we would get people into the program, how successful they would be. We were tying up lots of money in match funds early on because the participants kind of had an endless time frame. Well, I mean, they were limited by the AFI grant, but at that point that was a 5-year time frame, which meant that we were tying up all of this match money, and then we would get to 4 years and the participant wouldn't graduate either way. So it was kind of, it seemed like we were missing some opportunities there as far as not meeting the participants necessarily at a point where they're actually ready to purchase assets successfully. Our community partners had varying degrees of success with the program. It was very complicated when we started it. It had a lot of training requirements. It was in addition to what they were already doing, and our assumptions early on were that we would all be doing our own fundraising, so this IDA program was kind of an add-on to stuff that they were already doing. And a lot of them were only doing 1 or 2 IDAs a year, and because our application was complicated and the federal grant was complicated to manage, it was really difficult for them to keep up with what they were supposed to be doing, even though we were bringing them in on a quarterly basis and trying to maintain contact. We were just having a lot of community partners that just couldn't keep up with it because they weren't doing it on a day-to-day basis like some of their other work. The biggest problem was that we'd just lose track of people over time because even though they were contacting them on a regular basis, they may or may not be hearing back, and it was hard for them to stay on top of that communication. And then, as I said earlier, just providing, the community partners providing support to people who were not necessarily saving for the assets of that community partner's expertise. In particular, that was the housing partners trying to provide microenterprise support or education. And then the administrative management of the program was becoming increasingly time-consuming as we added more and more savers. We were having to manage all of the data for the training on a yearly basis, making sure that everyone was up to date every year, and just keeping track of the data correctly and accurate reporting as it would be for any federal grant, and reporting to all of our funders on a regular basis. And it was very difficult with the database that we had designed to do any of that reporting quickly and easily. Next. So after a while, sometime after the funding started to dry up, we had to make some decisions. We were returning a lot of money to AFI. Our first grant was $50,000, but the second grant that we ended up returning, I think, almost $300,000 of that grant. So that was a tough realization for us. All of our funding sources that we had signed up in the beginning were great, but as the economy was starting to change, they were turning their attention elsewhere. So it was getting harder and harder for us to raise all that money. And the community partners, again, having a hard time keeping on track and managing all the ongoing program requirements. And some of them would drop out, the community partners would actually drop out, and then others would want to come on, and we really couldn't, the training component for the community partners just to be partners with us was, it was a very time-intensive function as well, so we were spending a lot of time just training the community partners on an ongoing basis. So a few questions that we really needed to answer, which is how can we make this program sustainable given this new reality that we're facing in the 2010 time frame. We had those first two AFI grants. We had at least one other one that we had applied for a much smaller amount, but we were continuing to apply for AFI grants for the match that we could raise. And we just really wanted to rethink how to maximize those AFI funds and what we should be requesting in the future. What was that number that we could fundraise on a regular basis? And to lower the amount of match money and operating money that we need to be fundraising, and decreasing the staff time, both for us and for the community partners, so that we didn't have to have as many staff committed to maintaining a really good program. But that all of our time and energy was actually going towards working with the participants in a useful way, and not with reporting and things that just were not added value to anyone at the time. And then really had to increase that success rate for the participants. The attrition rate was so high, it was tying up our funding. Was the training that we were requiring of them really helpful? Was that the magic number of hours that they should be doing, and should they be doing it every year? And then the amount of savings, how much savings would be reasonable, and how do we maximize the match in an effective way? And then decrease the overall participation time frame so that we're not tying up money for 3 or 4 years and then having the participants drop out. So the new program really shook things up. Our new program design was an 8-to-1 match on $500, which is a significant change, which gave them $4,500 towards an asset. We limited the program to 18 months of maximum participation, so they had to purchase their asset 18 months from coming in. We reduced the training to 8 hours of financial training in total, so there was no annual training requirement. And we really focused on housing and education assets, because that was where we had really strong community partners. The Community Loan Fund had phased out the microenterprise program, and it was difficult to find someone in the state that could provide the level of assistance that we needed to make those IDA participants successful. So we had shifted our focus over to housing and education, where we already had some strong partners in place. And then we also spent a lot of time redesigning the application all of our procedures and process, and just trying to simplify everything that we had. We still deliver the program through the statewide network, and we still do the back office operations here at the Community Loan Fund. We've added community partners with education-specific experience. So we've added recently a couple of community colleges and New Hampshire Catholic Charities that all focus on education specifically. So we don't have to have our housing partners working with education participants if they feel that that's not productive for them. So they can refer them over to the other community partners. Our redesign process has also reduced the learning curve for the community partners, so they don't have to be managing enough participants to keep up to speed. It's the application is a little bit easier for them to follow, so they can go 2 or 3 months without filling one out and still be able to remember what to do, because the procedures are still there, and it's just a simplified process. And really, the community partners have adapted this 18-month time frame by thinking a little more carefully about whether these participants are ready to purchase their asset in the next 18 months. And I think that was one of the concerns we had early on, was that this is going to be the hardest for folks who are used to bringing people in as soon as they started meeting with them, with the housing organizations, and then working with them over this long period of time, hopefully. Whereas now it's a very quick turnaround, so we knew that there would be some transition time there, but all of the reports now are that this 18-month time frame has actually been really helpful, because it's a little bit more of a carrot for folks that are getting closer to that time frame for purchasing their home. And finally, we brought in a new database, which is Outcome Tracker. We're kind of new to it. We've only had it for 2 years here, but even in the first 2 years of transitioning data, it's cut down tremendously on the amount of admin time and energy it's taking for us to manage our savers, which we basically have between 140 to 170 savers on any given time in our grants that we have now. Next. So I would say our biggest lessons learned is really just to simplify this. We had a lot of help in the redesign from consultants, and I think that it brought in a new perspective on the fact that we could simplify. I think that we started out with a federal grant, and we're very specific about how we thought the program should be run, and I think that we needed someone else later to come in and offer some other possibilities for us. It was really helpful to see what else exists out there as far as program structure. And the timing, I think the 18-month time frame, as I mentioned earlier, has really turned out to be a good thing for the community partners. It was a transition, but the attrition rate is very, very low now, and is even getting lower every day as we transition out some of the people who have been grandfathered into the old program rules. But really, we have very few dropouts. Most people are reaching their asset goals within that 18 months. There are very few that we even have to terminate for time frames. And we offer them to come back in. We have at least 2 AFI grants open on any given time, so that's been easy to say, well, if this isn't the time for you, then why don't you come back to us when you might be a little bit closer. So that's also a nice option for us with the 18 months, is that it's not 18 months or never. They can come back later. And then I think, community partners are finding it much easier to manage and when they're close to that asset goal. Fundraising really it was easy for us in the beginning when funders had money to give, and so as it's gotten harder and harder over the years, we're trying to find ways to just reduce everyone's cost for running the program so that it's streamlined, and we're not having to manage a budget of 3 staff people to implement the program just here at the Community Loan Fund, and then also trying to reduce the administrative burden for any of the community partners so that they're really just doing the work that they need to be doing for this program. And then technology, I think we all wish that we had brought in technology a lot sooner than we did, but that's a big change, and I think that everyone gets a little bit nervous about database transitions. But now that we've done it, it really has been it's been great for us, and there are still so many more things that we have on our list of things to automate to move forward. So I think that's it.
Sara, thank you so much. That was a really, really great overview of everything that you've gone through. And, to both our presenters, I really appreciate your sort of being able to share kind of the path along the spectrum. I think it looks like, going back to our earlier poll, we have over 50% of you are sort of in the design process and early on and new to the AFI program. And I think one of the things that came out very clearly in these two grantees, and both of you shared, and that we see at CFPD and within the AFI program all the time, is that it's really sort of, in a lot of cases, it's sort of a guess and check model. There's lots of program design, there's lots of best practices, but you really have to design a program that really, as Nick said, meets your clients where they are, not just your clients, but also your organization, your community, taking advantage of and leveraging the resources that are there and the resources that are out there and that make the most sense, and really thinking critically about the capacity of your organization. Sara, I love that you shared how you guys had a lot of capacity challenges. There was a lot of time spent getting your partners and getting your team sort of up to speed and figuring out how to administer this project and getting the tracking done. That's a really important consideration when you're thinking about program design or program redesign, which is always a great thing to do if you think that there could be ways of doing the work that you're doing better and serving your communities more effectively. Everything that you've identified are things that CFPD would recommend. If we, I don't know if any of you have received a capacity building visit or a new grantee visit from CFPD, but we always talk about looking at your match rates that you're requiring, looking at your program requirements, looking at that length of engagement, the amount of time that your clients have to participate in your project. And as Nick alluded to, I think it's a fine balance between requiring folks to spend too much time versus not wanting them to kind of just rush through to asset purchase and not be ready. And that again goes back to your program design and really thinking about kind of meeting your communities and your clients where they are. So that was really, really, really great. Thank you so much. Now I want to kind of open the floor. There was a lot of information very fast. And so these next few minutes are really an opportunity for everybody on the phone to kind of share experiences, thoughts, ask questions, provide comments, any of that. So I'll just provide a few moments for you all to start typing in some of that. We'd love to hear what you have to say, feedback, questions, any of those things. So I'll just give it a few moments for you all to do that. All right, great. We're getting some questions and comments in. Just keep them coming. Want to get a good slate here. Also, folks on the line, feel free to share, as we did earlier in that poll question, any program redesigns or challenges that you all have overcome in your experience. We have one from Genevieve at Wayne Metro.
What types of technology did you use aside from outcome tracker to build capacity?
And this would be for Nick or Sara, or anybody else on the line on the audience that wants to share their thoughts.
I mean, for Genevieve, they're actually part of our network. Wayne Metro, a great partner. So we do use the AFI eligibility tool, or we encourage sites. So Wayne Metro actually has their own tool that's really effective at doing program eligibility. So we use that. We also use the benchmarking tool, at least internally, for us to ensure that we're going to hit the outcomes of the grant. And then, like I said earlier, I know some folks that did on the poll, we use all of our sites are using ETO, and we can use some of that data, at least within the program files, to make sure everything's in compliance, and we've got a budget, and we know what they're working on, and things like that.
And I would say, this is Sara, and I would say from our perspective, we've from the very beginning been very diligent about writing the policies and procedures for the program, and that has been our best capacity building tool as people transition in the community partners and in our program here at the Community Loan Funds. I mean, I'm the fourth person that's been in charge of the IDA program since it started, and we've had various ways of supporting the program. I'm actually in the finance department, so it actually is we've changed the way that we're delivering the program in our office in the Community Loan Fund, just because it's so heavily based in finance that we've moved it over to better utilize the capacity of the finance team, so that we don't have to transition as many times with as many details. But really, we've depended on some solid written policies and procedures that get revised on a regular basis so that we can have multiple people maintaining the same standards.
Great. I think that's one of the key traits about both of your programs that made it or makes it so successful is your commitment to data integrity and data tracking. And one of the follow-up questions that I had was how does or how has data not just shaped your design but your engagement with staff? Both of your projects are engaging staff at multiple sites across the city. So maybe if you could share one example each of how you've used data to communicate with ground level staff changes that need to be made in your program. Nick or Sara?
Sorry, I was on mute. In terms of, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? Sorry, my
Sure.
was a little static.
Both of you shared reflections on how important data tracking is to you, but I would like to hear about how you've sort of used data to communicate to ground level staff about changes that need to take place. So not just program design, but really in your day-to-day interactions with staff that are working across sites across the city.
I mean, for our day, I mean, for we've offered to our sites, at least in the ETO, to design things like queries that could potentially identify participants that could be successful. So maybe pulling a report on folks that have a 710 credit score and look to maybe have some assets. So doing things like that, like looking at the data you have to potentially find some eligible participants, and then also encouraging consistent follow-up, again, using that data, so the data you have on hand to send emails, send text messages, do phone calls. We try not to make it too complicated, and I think a big part of it, at least, so I used to be a financial coach, and I think the biggest thing for me was just, and for clients being engaged, is that consistent follow-up, so that I'm consistently, giving them a call, I'm in their lives, and they kind of felt that, that I cared about them. And so I think that was, we use technology to get there as a reminder, but at the end of the day, for us, it was the best thing. It's just that day-to-day, or at least month-over-month client interaction.
And this is Sara. I would say for us, we're relatively new to Outcome Tracker, and we're not using the data as much as we should, but I think one of the things that we have to do now that we've changed the program is to be very diligent about our 18-month mark. So we are sending out regular reports on a monthly basis to all of our community partners to say, hey, your participants getting to the 12-month mark, how close are they? Do you think, do we need any status changes? Do you think they're going to be successful? So we're using that, also just communicating whether bank accounts have been opened or not. So we are using a lot of just kind of status reporting with them, and then most of our other reporting for the community partners is based on their requirements. If they get requests from funders specifically to them, then we'll do some work with them on that. But as I said, we're just have our toes in the water, I think, with Outcome Tracker and the capacity that we can build using it.
Great, thank you. Our next question is about financial education for participants, and the question reads, do you know of useful resources for financial education specifically targeted for small business and education clients?
I mean, I think the FDIC has a Money Smart curriculum specific to small business. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. And then, you know, here, like luckily for us in Detroit locally, we have some programs that aren't necessarily based on curriculum, just some local programs that folks can go through local FBA lenders or something like that. But I'm pretty sure if you go into Money Smart, they have a small business curriculum you can use. It's free.
Right. I would say the same thing. Our community partners that are the community colleges are running through their offices there. Financial aid are working with them, and same with our Catholic Charities partner. It's more one-on-one counseling. And for micro enterprise, we also have a bunch of community-based organizations that are working with small business folks across the state. But we're not really doing a lot with them at the moment. But there is a pretty good network here in the state.
That's great. Thank you. This is Megan. Just to follow up, yes, there is a small business sort of topical education through Money Smart. But I'm also curious. I know of some of the folks that are on the phone, and I know that some of you are delivering small business IDAs, and you have participants going through that. I'm curious if anybody has for small business and for education, if anybody has a particular curriculum or tool that you all are using, please feel free to go ahead and type those into the chat box. We'd love to hear what you found useful or what you maybe have found not to be so useful if you've made some changes. I think that would be great. So, sorry, I just wanted to put that out there.
Great. Our next question is about technology tools. Both of you referenced the importance of technology in program design. And the question reads, do you have recommendations for particularly useful tech tools?
I'm thinking.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, I know some of our sites use some, like they may do one of our sites, they're not an IDA partner, but you could potentially use this for IDA. One of our partners uses Google Drive, and they have a shared, essentially what Google calls Excel, a Google spreadsheet file they share for budgeting, so the coach and the client can make updates to the budget as needed. I always thought that was pretty interesting. It's not something we've employed to our network, but it's something a site's using. I know there are some you know, text feed, you know, you can do mass text and things like that. It's not something I don't know that any of our sites do that or not. It's always something I found interesting, but never ended up doing it when I was a coach myself. But doing something like, you know, text message reminders that it's time to save, or doing, you know, weekly, you know, updates, stuff like that. And the site I worked at had their own Twitter handle specific to our financial stability work. So we would tweet messages and encourage our folks to follow, but I'm not sure, you know, a ton did. Unfortunately, it's something we tracked. But those are just some things I could think of.
That's great, Sarah. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think that's one area that we really want to be growing in the future. I think that we were very low tech for a long time, so we're just trying to think about ways to better facilitate our work with our community partners in particular. And I know that we will be using Outcome Tracker as a web-based tool to facilitate conversations with our community partners and checking in on participants, because it's all built into that software, but we haven't gotten to that yet.
Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of organizations are trying to think about creative ways to utilize technology, you know, either for purposes of data tracking or program administration. I know that I saw in the comments that some of you are sending out text message blast reminders, flash reminders. You know, if you, in particular, if your organization have figured out a good way to utilize interesting tech products, either for the purposes of delivering financial education or coaching, tracking, reminders, participant engagement, any of that, would love for you to share your ideas in the chat box. I know that some of you are, so it would be great to kind of share those and get those out with the whole group.
Our next question is, what is the purpose for incorporating microgrants into your program?
What's the purpose?
What's the purpose?
Sure. I think in terms of your retention or engagement. So folks think, you know, there's that possibility of, okay, I can get a $3,000 match on a home purchase and then also qualify for a $1,500 micro grant. There's that kind of little more incentive to save. So that's kind of that. And again, we didn't design it. It's almost like a product to be offered. It could be instead of IDA or with IDA. It wasn't necessarily originally offered to be to go in tandem with IDA, but we started to see more and more folks applying that already that were in an active IDA, and it seemed like those folks, anecdotally, I don't have tons of data on it, but it seemed like those folks got to their qualified withdrawal, and it took that little bit of extra incentive to push them over the top. So that, again, that's not why we designed them, but they tend to be working well together.
And we found with many IDA programs that offer the small business track is that sometimes the difficulty that participants face in purchasing that asset is not necessarily being able to save, but securing that additional funding to be able to launch that business, especially if it's a startup entrepreneur. So pairing products, or even if you don't offer it in-house, finding partners across your city that are able to provide that resource to your participants, you know, can ensure that they're able to successfully complete and make that asset purchase.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I just, this is Megan again. We have Riley Tuff, who shared that they're proposing a community force to track clients. That the system allows for an in-depth way of recording clients. It was originally, seems like, designed to manage scholarships, but they're looking to repurpose it for IDAs. Riley, I'm wondering if we take you off mute, if you'd be willing and able to share a little more about that. So just let us know if that's a possibility for you wherever you are. Just type it into the chat box and we can unmute your line. Okay, looks like the mic's not working. That's okay, but you know, if you're interested and able, like, please do share a little more information. We also got some other resources typed into the chat box for if you're interested in thinking about texting blast texting for reminders or for kind of continual engagement. Looks like grouptexting.com. We did have a recommendation from somebody in terms of looking for some good financial education resources, is checking out the CFPB, Your Money, Your Goals. Definitely one that we see a lot here at CPD. A lot of organizations use that, so that's super helpful. Keep those recommendations and questions and comments rolling in, and it looks like we've got just a couple more questions, and then we'll move on to our next section.
Our next question is about the initial phases of designing your program. So what is the ideal size program that you think grantees should begin with?
This is Sara. I'll comment on that because we've had ongoing challenges with that.
Sarah, I'm just gonna interrupt you real quick. You're kind of cutting in and out all of a sudden. Your voice sounds robotic.
Okay. Is it any better now?
No, it's not. You may want to try to call back in.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Okay, while we're waiting for Sarah to do that, it looks like Riley is able to hop on and tell us a little bit more about this particular technological tool. Riley. Are you on the line? Possibly no. All right. While we wait for these, Nick, do you have some suggestions about how grantees might identify what the ideal program size could be to get started, get things off the ground?
I wish I could provide some insight on that. I can't. I just know, what we've done, we have 2 grants now that are about 50 accounts apiece amongst 4 service providers. That seemed about right. We didn't quite get to fill all the accounts, so I would have liked to add more partners. And we may be serving our partners 150 to 200 apiece annually. So I can't even really put a guess on what size you'd want to have. It's more about looking at do you have folks in your pipeline that have income that can be saved. Do you have obviously you have to be do you have enough folks who are employed and who would then have using that technology, so like something like ETO or outcome tracker or whatever you track your budget in to pull, do you have a healthy chunk of individuals? You're going to definitely need more than however many accounts you have, because people are going to fall off. Do you have folks who have quote-unquote disposable income? Do they have net income at the end of the month as opposed to operating in the red? I think that's the kind of the thing to look at. But in terms of a number or percent, I couldn't give you one.
That makes absolute sense. I think I second everything you said there, Nick, and I think that it could be really useful for those who are thinking about trying to determine the appropriate program size to go to the AFI Resource Center and just check out some of the materials and resources there around designing your AFI program. There's some good webinars and really interesting sort of exercises and questions that can help you kind of determine your capacity internally, your capacity at your organization, and in your community, and really sort of help you determine like what is going to be most appropriate to meet your clients where they are and get the most impact. So it looks like possibly Riley has joined now. Riley, are you on the phone?
I'm on the phone.
All right. Welcome.
Yay! All right.
Thanks so much. If you just want to share quickly, that would be great.
Yeah, about the community force. It's what we use to manage with our partner agencies, how we do the funding allocations with them. But it's a really actually neat system in that you can create users and profiles, and you create questions and like application forms that they can fill out. And so, like I said, we haven't launched our program yet. We're still in the development phases. But I've created whole applications that have questions that require reviewers to go in and kind of double check and make sure as they progress. And it's hopefully I'm making sense here because I'm trying to be fast. But it allows us. Yeah, it allows the users to answer questions that we create for them and to kind of track their progress. Like, we'll regularly ask them to update kind of how much they've saved, and then we can be able to go have our reviewer to go back in and check the bank accounts and clarify and double check and just make sure. So it allows like a user to update their progress and then a reviewer to go in and actually confirm their updates.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a neat system. I encourage you to check it out if you have the opportunity.
Curious, Riley, can you talk a little bit about this resource in terms of cost, or? Honestly,
I wish I could. That would be my supervisor. I've just kind of been handed the software, and maybe if there's another meeting, I can check back in and get back with you about that. But yes.
No, that's great. That's really helpful. Thank you so much, Riley. Appreciate you being able to join us and share that information. That's great. And for folks on the line who are interested, we'll definitely try and collect some more information and see if we can distribute that out to all of you. All right. So now I think we're in a place. Keep questions coming in. We've got a couple more minutes, but I think we're in a place now where we can start talking a little bit about next steps. So coming up on Tuesday, September 6th, and please mark your calendars. Initially, this was way back in April. This was scheduled for Monday, September 5th, which you all might recognize as Labor Day. So we have changed it. It should be on the calendar at September 6th, and we've got it all set up. So this is going to be our last webinar in this series, using social media to maximize your AFI grant. So this is really an opportunity, as it says there, I won't read it to you all, you can read, but it's really an opportunity for grantees to hop on and share ideas, tips, what's worked with social media. Do you find, we've seen grantees who have really robust Facebook accounts, and that's a great way to engage alumni, and clients who really moved forward and already made asset purchase to continue to engage. It's a great way to, in some cases, to celebrate successes, milestones, perhaps folks are using Twitter, Instagram, all of the different social media pieces. So in terms of, we're really going to be talking about how you can best utilize social media as a recruitment tool, as kind of even a retention tool, building savings habits. Maybe there's, tweets that you're doing, tweeting out tips for how to save or how to budget, or, trying to figure out different ways to use this effectively. So I definitely, if any of you on the line have identified some really great ways for how to utilize social media to maximize capacity for yourselves internally and for your clients that you're serving, please get in touch with us. We'd love to hear ideas or have you perhaps present. But this is that time of the, and again, it's going to be really interactive. We want everyone to feel free to communicate, get in your ideas, get in your questions. So think about what questions you might have and share them with us. And so finally, definitely, as I mentioned earlier, encourage you to, if you haven't yet, particularly for those folks that are early on in their AFI career, think about heading to the IDA resources.cf.hhs.gov. That's going to be a great place to find lots and lots of tools and resources related to AFI and your IDA programs. You can check out the calendar, as I mentioned, these webinars and all kinds of other upcoming AFI-related things are going to be on those calendars. If you have questions, if you right now have specific things that you'd like to address or know about your AFI program, definitely encourage you to email the help desk, info@idaresources.org. Someone will get back to you, possibly schedule a technical assistance call or visit or help you sort out whatever your challenges are. Go ahead and give them a call if that's easier. So other than that, I think that we're going to wrap it up today. As I said, we'll share with you slides and transcripts, and I will try to get to all of these questions that you all have submitted and all of your ideas and thoughts. And otherwise, on behalf of all of us, thank you so much, Nick and Sarah. I hope Sarah got back on. Thank you, participants, for all of your questions. And we're really excited to see you in September. Otherwise, take care, everybody.